Hi, I'm Stephen Zimmer, and you are listening to the School of Fiction channel.
Hi, Stephen. So glad to have you. You're an author of longevity who has worked worn many hats in writing and publishing, and so one of the more accomplished guests that I've had. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you about a lot of different things. But I think we should obviously go straight to your new book release, which is, of course, it's called The Embrace of the Sun, and here we have it here. So tell us about this, and then this is your 33rd book. So we're going to
Yes.
the rest of them after this, but let's start with this one.
This is a standalone novella, and it is in the fantasy genre. It's set in the world of my Fires in Eden series, which is ensemble cast epic fantasy. This particular story is set in a part of that world that's inspired by the Mesoamerican world. So you'll find a lot of things inspired by the Aztec Maya type cultures, and it's a heroic story. It's definitely a I think it has a fast pace, and it's something that definitely, you're not going to have to take a lot of time to read, but it's got a lot of touches with supernatural elements and adventure elements and things like that. So it's got a nice blend for fantasy and sword and sorcery fans.
And this book is in set in real Mesoamerica or in your own take upon Mesoamerica.
In the Fires in Eden world, which is called Ave in that world, but I do like to draw inspirations from cultures in our world to give it a sense of organic reality. So you'll see the influences, but it's not meant to be an exact, like a historical novel.
So since you have a lot of books, how many of them are in this world?
In this world, currently, I just finished writing the fourth in the Fires in Eden series. That's the epic fantasy series. And then I have a collection called The Chronicles of Ave, which has several short stories set in this world. And then this is the first standalone novella set in that world. So a total of five available titles that are available now, with one on the horizon coming.
That's excellent. So you can plan to continue this series for a while.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I've got seven books in the main series, but the short stories and novellas give me a lot of room to have some fun around that.
Okay. So let's look at your book list overall. You can tell me what you'd like me to focus in upon, but I imagine you have several series.
I do. I do. I have several. I write in multiple genres, and what I'm looking at right now, you've got some of my sword and sorcery that's up there, with Heart of a Lion. That's first of a trilogy with a female warrior named Raiden Valkyrie. To the far right, you have A Moment in Eternity, and this is a warrior set in the same world, but the culture that he's from is set on the ancestral Puebloans, the Hopi and the Zuni, those type of Native American tribes, and it's that part of that world. And his name is Hongvi Shadow Walker. And then the third main heroic figure from that world is Ragnar Stormbringer, and I can see a couple titles there, Burning Skies and The Awakening, and those are both standalone novellas with that.
Did
And
you
then
model for those covers? Because that looks like you. Actually, Ragnar looks like you.
looks like me. Well, thank you. That's a compliment. But no, it's not me. It was yeah, very a model that is in a much better physical condition than me right
Yeah.
now.
Well, you know what I
But
mean.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
But it's definitely,
and
yeah.
so it seems like a reader can really get immersed. World building clearly a specialty
Mhm.
and a deep interest of yours.
Absolutely.
Do you have nonfiction also, or any other titles besides this fantasy series?
Well, on the far right, I see you have Dream of the Navigator, and I describe that as 1984 and Brave New World meets Narnia. And the second book, Rise of the Voyagers, is coming out this year, and I'm currently writing the third book in that series. But it's more of a YA dystopian cross-genre type series, so it's definitely a lot different. It gets into futurism and future tech and things like that. So it's more of a sci-fi, dystopian type of work than my fantasy novels, for instance.
Hmm. I'm just going to mention to you that just late last year, a book came out called Julia, which was a sequel to 1984
Hmm.
by a woman, and it focuses on the character of Julia. I don't know how much that would catch your interest to read. I thought it was brilliant, and then I kind of turned against it toward the end. I was like, nah, maybe not this part. So
Yeah,
I
I have
it's
not read
very
it, but
entertaining if you
yeah,
get a chance to look at it.
yeah, I definitely, I mean, because 1984 had a huge influence on me growing up.
It
So I definitely would be interested to see what they might have done.
I think it's one of the best novels of all time. It's in my
Yeah,
top five, I think. So yes.
nice.
So 33 books though, Stephen. I think about 10 myself.
Hey, no,
And I'm very impressed. It's very difficult to write so many books and as you're telling me now, overlapping series and maintain focus. So how can you explain your longevity? How do you have you managed to keep focused and keep producing work of this quality and at this pace?
writing regularly. I don't hold myself to like a strict word count goal each day, but I believe that writing as much as possible daily on a daily. I know life happens sometimes. You have things come up and you can't write on a certain day, but trying to write at least daily and is one reason. And then the other reason is because with shifting series, is I always come back to a new title with a very refreshed kind of perspective where if I'm writing in the fantasy world and then I go and write in the futuristic world, it's like I get a little bit of a refresh and when I come to do the new title. So those are two things I think have been the biggest factors in keeping me on course.
I was always influenced by Isaac Asimov when in his first autobiographical book, he explained that when he was stuck on his science fiction novel, he would switch to a science book. And when he was stuck on the
Mhm.
science book, he'd go back to the science fiction novel. And since then, as a person giving writing advice, whenever someone says I'm stuck, I'm blocked, I'll say, work on another project.
Yes,
That way you
absolutely.
clear through
Hmm.
your block that way. So I don't know whether you actually do more than one at a time, which I've been known to do. And but
I do that with short fiction and long fiction. So I don't necessarily work on two long fiction projects at the same time, but I do write short stories sometimes at the same time. So sometimes I do exactly what you've described, where I'll bounce over to a short story and then come back to the long form project. So yeah, absolutely understand that.
I think I can, I speak for myself officially here, but probably also indirectly for other people, possible viewers, saying that it's difficult to maintain focus on a lot of things, wearing a lot of hats, even within one field. Of course, I'm a teacher, so that's a requirement for me in the teaching field to handle many things at the same time. But in writing, even in creativity, it's even harder. So, because you're not just an author, you have the book convention called the Imaginarium,
Hmm.
and you're the editor in chief of a small press, and
Hmm. Yep,
you have a podcast.
that too.
So, I mean, how do you manage the workload and keep up the pace with so much multitasking required?
Well, the good news is they're all in the same field ultimately, because the podcast, mainly interviews writers and other creatives. And so, for me at least, the convention, the podcast, the press, it still keeps me in the book world. So that's one thing that helps because I love the world of books publishing. So it helps to have that. But the other thing is just learning the art of time management and when, I set my windows of time during the day. I do my writing first in the day when my brain is fresh and hasn't been cluttered up with business, and then I do my what I call my office period after that, and that's usually when I get into the convention, the press, the work for the press, and then the evening is once a week we do our podcast, and so that way, each thing has its own compartment, and I also do the same thing with my time on social media, so that doesn't get out of hand either. So yeah, it's mainly time management and compartmentalizing.
Do the other things sometimes burn you out and so that it's difficult to write?
Not so much with the writing. because that's something that always is a, for me at least, a very very enjoyable process. Yeah, I mean, not easy process, don't get me wrong, but I do, yeah, I love starting my day that way. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, yeah, if you're on like some deadlines or you have some major things going on with the convention that have resulted in a late night, yeah, sometimes sure, sure, it can get a little tougher, but yeah, just as long as I keep things in their box, so to speak, for as much as I can, that helps mitigate that.
Well, you mentioned you don't have word count targets, and I have seen and I'll commented upon this myself also. A lot of authors who are like beginners will say, "Do I need, how many words per day is enough, or what kind of target should I set, or how many hours per day?" So, from my point of view, it's what you can do.
Hmm.
You do as much as you can do, whatever you're comfortable doing, and there may be days when you do extra, and there may be days when you do less, or days when you can't do anything because you're recharging from an intense session. So, what is your perspective on this?
Very similar. I believe that you do what you can do. I've had some of my best writing sessions have been 700 words, and then there's times when I get extra time and I might be able to rip off, 5 to 8,000 words in a session. So it's just as much as you can get done, and absolutely, I feel almost exactly the same way that you do on that. It's just the process, writing regularly, because in my view, it keeps your creative brain in the creative zone. And that's the key thing, not binging and like writing a whole lot in one day, then coming back the next week. Now, I believe in, writing, on a near daily basis or daily basis if you can, because even if it's a few hundred words a time, because it just keeps your mind in that zone, the creative zone. So yeah, I believe it's very similar to you.
So now I'm going to turn to the tough one. This is the tough one because it's something that almost everyone has questions about, including me. I have as many as anybody, and that is book marketing. Uh,
That's a Yeah, that's a tough one.
it's a tough one, and
Tough
I
one.
have been fortunate. I've interviewed so far Beth Barani and Dan Klefstad about that, who are both expert, and you were also
Yes.
expert. So I'm building up a collection of expert advice, tips from the experts. So yeah, now I'm putting you on the spot, Stephen Zimmer. Tell us some stuff that you would recommend to the beginners learn and undertake with book marketing.
Well, I think the important thing to do as far as marketing goes is understand that the landscape does change very frequently. And so different things will rise and fall. Like when Kindle Unlimited came in, it changed the way, ebooks sold, in a very big way, for example. So you have to really keep your eye on what is happening in the book publishing world, and what sort of models are being used to sell books, what platforms. And so, but I think that the main thing is you have to, if you're a beginner, have things that are under your control, because social media platforms are great, and I am gonna, say absolutely, pick a few and do them well, and that should be part of your book marketing. But the important thing is to have things that are under your control, that aren't controlled necessarily by a social media company's algorithm. And the two big areas that you can control are having a good website, a good clear website, and then the other thing is a newsletter, like a email newsletter. And so if you those things will get to your readers and be accessible to your readers, without any problem at any time, because you control them. Beyond that, yes, look, your Facebook, your Instagram, your X or Blue Sky, all those other platforms, they're different. You should learn about what works on each one, like Book Talk on TikTok, obviously BookTube on YouTube. You should learn the nuances of each platform, and what its strengths and weaknesses are, but be careful not to spread thin. So I would suggest, just picking, three or four, and just learning them, how to work each one and what's different about each one, and then keeping a presence on them. And it's not just putting a buy my book type post all the time. Make sure, you put some things out that are, about your writing, about, your influences, your inspirations, even if you want to share some personal things, but keep it from just becoming a buy my book sort of post pattern. And so
You
that's
partly
that's
answered,
another.
yeah, you part that partly answered the question I was about to ask you, which is how to break through the resistance. I'd say a lot of people have 90 or 95 to 99% resistance to book links, or here, buy my book, or here's a pitch. So I had
Hmm.
heard before that personal stuff actually works better. And something like maybe doing a talking head video might be more valuable than a book trailer. So yeah, I
Agreed.
think you're saying along those lines. Do you have anything else to add about that?
Oh, I agree 100%. I think when you can put a more personal touch, because when people often what they're buying often is you. It's not just the book. You know, they do want to get to know you a little bit and get to know your personality, what you're about, maybe what some of your interests are. So I think it is good to have, as you said, some videos, of yourself, and so they can see, what you're like and your personality. Yeah, that absolutely I think is effective because, for instance, on currently at least, I mean, these algorithms change all the time, but on like X and LinkedIn, I mean, you actually get algorithmically suppressed if you have a link in your main post. And so, with those two platforms, the trick is you put any links you want to put in a reply to yourself. And but yeah, some of the other platforms you don't get penalized for that, like Blue Sky. I mean, that Blue Sky currently, lets you put links right in your post, and they don't penalize you for it. So you do have to learn some of the differences with the, what is boosted on a platform, or what gets you suppressed on a platform in the algorithm, and that gets a little wonky, but it's good to know so that you at least are getting
How
as
can we
many
start getting
impressions
that
as you can.
information? How do we start learning that stuff? Because if you
You
Google
just
it,
have to
you're going to
go
get
on
only approved information.
You just have to go on each one, and I think that one of the things that's been fairly helpful lately is your chat GPTs, your Groks, not and I'm talking about using AI like a search engine, not using AI to create or generate creative content, but using it as a search engine. And sometimes using that, you can ask it questions about what works on each platform, and often it will give you either links to content that will tell you about that, or it will give you the straight up answer about, it'll give you advice essentially and say, well, usually, if you put links in, it's not going to work so much here. And yeah, and so, yeah, so sometimes I think that in addition to talking to people that obviously are doing very well on a platform, if you have like people like friends you can reach out to who are very well established and using a social media platform well, you can get advice from them. But I also suggest, like, well, you can use search engines, of course, still, of course, but I have found you can get more pointed information by using some of the chat GPT kind of stuff for research. And I want to be clear, yeah, because I know that's a big hot topic right now, the whole AI thing,
It
but
is,
this
and
strictly for research.
I have used AI some, not
Yeah.
creatively in the sense that would be objectionable, and it is a very interesting topic. And I
Mhm.
think probably we should save that for a separately scheduled discussion.
Oh, yes.
I think
Yeah.
maybe a round table with a couple of veteran
Yeah.
authors would be a good way to address that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That's an episode in itself. Yeah, for
It
sure.
is definitely, and with multiple viewpoints to be covered.
Mhm.
So let's talk about your small press, and I don't know the name of it, so I'd like to add that in.
Sure. Seventh Star Press, and it came to life in the fall of 2008. So, been around for, almost 17 years, almost. So,
Embrace the
yeah,
initiative, embrace
yeah,
the imaginative, right?
yes, embrace the imaginative.
Okay.
And we have a few imprints. We have one for children's books, one for mystery thrillers, and then one for romance. And recently, yes, as you can see, we did an overhaul of the website to make it just simple, clean, easy to navigate with the different authors. And you've got the author list up there, but each page has their bio, has their image, and has all of the books that we've
Who's
put
this
out for
guy?
them.
This guy looks interesting.
Yes, I'm there too.
So now that I see this is here, I'm gonna like see which of these people you want to introduce me to for interviews.
Absolutely. I'd be
Yeah.
glad to. Some great folks on there
Okay.
who I,
So
I do
great.
love.
Now that we see this, tell me, what most writers, including me, don't really understand what being part of a small press like you are is really like. So obviously, I'm not asking for any secrets, but put
Mhm.
it this way: what do small press editors want authors to understand?
Follow the guidelines. That's the big thing. If a press is open up for submissions and they give instructions on how they want something to be submitted and what they are taking submissions on, send them, exactly what they're asking for and keep it, to what they are looking for. And in other words, don't send a romance novel into a fantasy small press, and if they tell you, how they want the pages formatted, do it exactly as they say it, because that's always a test to see what you're like to work with. So yeah, be very conscientious of submissions and guidelines information. And because the good thing with a small press is you don't need a literary agent to approach one. You can approach editor acquisitions person at a small press directly, and that's one thing that's a good thing
What
about it.
what, what is it that writers misunderstand about a small press? I mean, and I imagine you get they occasionally write to you about why didn't this happen, or they're angry or something like that. How can we make new writers understand what it's like from your side?
Well, a legitimate small press, the writer's not going to pay for anything, with the exception of, if they want to buy some wholesale books to take to a convention to sell themselves and keep the profit, that's legitimate. But everything else is paid for by the press. So, your editing, your formatting and layout, your cover art, any, marketing from the press, all that's taken care of by the press. And so if you are being asked to pay for any of those things, then that's a bit of a red flag. But that's I'm just speaking in terms of just the legitimate small presses that are out there. And then I think the other thing is, you have to understand that the it's a time windows with a small press are longer than like with a major press. Like in a major press, when a book gets released, you have only 2 or 3 months to see if how that book does, and then beyond that, you just don't get necessarily the same focus from the major press. But with a small press, I look at it as it's a much longer period. So a small press will still be, pushing, your titles, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, which I think is a good thing, with a press. And so there's a lot of I think there's a lot of strengths with small presses. Obviously the tough part is that it's not guaranteed that they can get your book on a bookstore shelf in the same way that a major press can, and some of the other publicity aspects, where a major press has access to larger media. But yeah, there are a lot of good things about a small press. Working with
Our
editors,
major
cover
press
artists.
Are major presses like burying books now? They'll be like, well, we're releasing this many per month, but we're only going to promote this one, and then they tell the author for the rest of them, you have to promote it or forget it. Is that the
In my experience and observing, people that I know that are mid-list authors and things like that, a lot of the burden of marketing does fall on the author, absolutely, even with a major press, and they tend to allocate most of their, publicity dollars and marketing dollars to the things that are their big sellers. They'll get a few main titles that really are, selling really well, and that's what's carrying a lot of the weight, and then a lot of the others, like on the mid list area and so forth, are expected to get out there and promote and market themselves in a lot of ways. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what you're saying is accurate. Yeah, some things do get buried after a while.
I have been known to say in social media and whenever anybody says, what if you could go back and tell the younger version of you something to do differently, what would it be? And I would say get a degree in marketing.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't have known back in the 80s when I was coming up. And I don't know how our ages are relatively different. But I was a teenager in the 80s. I was reading in the 80s fantasy boom, and I submitted directly to Del Rey Press without an agent
Nice.
in like 1985. So
Yeah.
this was a time when Midlist was real,
Hmm.
when it wasn't when all books weren't celebrity books, right?
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and it would never have occurred to me that I would need to learn how to do marketing. And so I was stupid, and I got degrees in creative writing. And of course, then I'm going to be interviewing Elliot Parker after you, and he's a
Yeah.
creative writing professor, so I'll be a little
Oh,
more
he's great.
careful when I'm talking to him.
Yeah, he's great. I
Yeah,
love Elliot.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you Yeah. Um, let's have a look at a couple more ventures that you have. This is your podcast, the Podbean link to it, the Star Chamber Show.
Yes. Yeah, we moved to Podbean a little over now a little over a year ago
Mhm.
now.
I see this
And
a lot of places. So it's app on Apple, which is what I used
yep.
to use, although iTunes
Mhm.
was the worst software I ever had on my computer. But all right, never mind that. You're on
Yep.
YouTube also, which is what I use now. Amazon Music. All right, tell us about this show.
The Star Chamber show is been around for a while now. We just got up to our 465th episode, but it's a weekly 1 hour to hour and a half live podcast, audio only. That's co-hosted primarily by myself and Holly Philippi, and we tend to focus on the creative world. Events, people within the creative world, a lot of authors. We have had filmmakers and game designers and musicians and some other creatives on, but uh, probably a little the majority come from the book world. So in addition to publishers and editors too, but it's been quite a ride because we always get a lot of great craft of writing insights and lots of things about different parts of the country and different events going around the country. So it's affiliated with our Imaginarium convention too. So we do get to feature a lot of the folks that are coming to Imaginarium, and so it's been a lot of fun to do. I enjoy it.
I don't know if this is too small for YouTube, but this is the Ragnar look right here.
Yes.
That's what I was referring to.
Yep. Yeah. That's a little older one where I've gotten a little bit of silver in my in my hair since then. So.
And now the Imaginarium, which I had heard about before because a writer who I call my author bestie, Misty Parker, is a regular attendee. I know you know her.
Oh yes, she is
And
fantastic.
and so she would always post that she was going to Imaginarium, and I would think I saw
Yep.
you on Facebook before we met because of that. So this is a pretty significant event. So tell us whatever you want to tell us about this, because I'm sure a lot of
Sure.
people would like to participate or be involved, and it's coming up pretty soon too.
Yep, it's coming up next month. It'll be our 12th year, as a matter of fact, July 18th to 20th in Louisville, Kentucky, and it is a exactly, what I always wanted to see in a convention. It's a convention for all genres of creative writers and also other storytellers like screenwriters, game writers, poets, and song lyricists. So it covers all spheres of writing, which is pretty unique in the world of conferences and conventions. And it has 3 days filled with panel and workshop programming. This year, we're going to have about 135 sessions. We have about a little over 200 spotlighted guests and panelists participating. This year, we have Heather Graham and Johnny Boggs are our two guests of honor this year. So we got some absolutely fantastic people coming in, and it's got a lot of fun too. The whole idea was to have an accessible and supportive environment for all levels of writers, whether you're a New York Times bestseller or an unpublished writer that's just starting out, and a place where they can come and feel comfortable, get mentored, network, learn, and have fun. I mean, we got a lot of fun events and activities that go along with it too.
For this
So
one, this is an entertheimaginarium.com.
mhm.
I will put this link in somewhere in the final video, as well as the links to the other things that we've seen, your sales and your podcast and so on, so on. So yeah, this has been great. Really have enjoyed this time talking to you,
Oh,
Stephen.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime. Anytime.
And so if you're interested, then when I'm trying to put together a panel discussion, I would like to invite you back. I think you have a kind of a statesman quality for that, which we would really very much
Sure.
appreciate. Sure. Whether it's about AI or about marketing, these are some
Yes.
we could be
Oh
talking.
yeah. The two hot topics.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. This is excellent.
The School of Fiction.